Hello and welcome to another boring week of Take Your Time, a Persona podcast where we talk about Persona 3 Reload in real time along with the in-game calendar, where yet again, no major things happened whatsoever and there's nothing bombshell related to discuss that my co-host may or may not have guessed. We'll get there in just a second because my name is Jonathon Dornbush, joined as always by my co-host Tom Marks. Tom, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm not going to jump up and down and run around this time because I did guess some of the stuff and kind of predicted some stuff. And also this week went the way I was expecting in some ways and totally not the way I was expecting in others. So,
yeah,
it was a good week. It was a good week I'm very excited to dig into everything.
Yeah, I would say it was maybe not as knock it out of the park as some of your predictions have been, but
yeah. And also I was generally less confident going into the week.
That's fair. Very small note, apologies to anyone watching the video version of the show. My internet's being a little silly, so you may get some slowdown and things there. But if you're listening to the audio version, should be fine, should be crystal clear. Or if I start talking like Smeagol, I have bad news. That isn't an audio problem. That's just me deciding to do a voice. Before we get into whether or not that happens, we are going to be covering the days of December 1st through 7th. Yes, we've started the final month of the year, the final month of the game. Who's to say? Probably not if you maybe looked at what he was saying in a scene, but we'll get there. We'll talk about that. We've got plenty to dig through this week. So without further ado, let's start getting into things. As always, with our confidant call out, this is a huge shout out and thank you to everyone who is supporting us over at patreon.com/takeyourtime at the Palace Ruler tier. Thank you so much for showing your support for the show. And as always, those wonderful folk are Akechi as a Jelly Bean, Astral Clock Tower, Brody S, Cameron C, Claudia R, Dallas, Damon, Dan F, Danimal Lover 01. Hope you couldn't hear my stomach just rumble right now. I did have dinner, I swear. Default Titus, Dexter, I Kill Gods for Fun, Caitlin E, Keegan H, Matt Attack, Metaphor Refantasio Goaty Nominee, Michael V, Philip S, Programmer Sid, Sam K, Sarah M, Shade, and Willie Wang Wang. Thank you all so much for supporting us over at the Palace Ruler tier, and thank you to everyone who's been showing us support. If you would like to go over to the Patreon and get episodes ad-free, as well as a host of bonus episodes, you can head on over to patreon.com/takeyourtime. We will be recording this month's bonus episodes, which we talked about last week as well, so look forward to those as we talk about all the wonderful games we played and loved this year. Should be fun. Can't imagine one of those games. Can't even throw a dart at the wall, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
I mean, it's a blank slate. We'll figure it out.
We will. I do have a couple of comments, but actually tie into the quiz. So, Tom, why don't you hit us with your pop quiz from last week?
Yeah, so last week I asked that Junpei gets a new theurgy when he melds spirit and soul with his dead girlfriend. I wanted to just put that the weirdest possible way I could. But you get a new theurgy. Yeah. He gets a new theurgy. And I asked what the name of that theurgy was. It does a lot of fire damage and it heals. And you said we got some this week?
We did, yes. The Blaze of Life, as it is known, was called by Shade, I believe, as well. Mark got it right. A couple other just people talking about that in general as well. So I think a well-known one, so congrats to them for getting it right.
It's a good name. And I don't remember all of the names of the theurgies. I think Hound of Hades is one of Koromaru's, and I remember the Best Friends one that I just unlocked with the protagonist, but that's because it's called Best Friends and it's very funny to me. But yeah, a lot of these names I just do not remember. So Blaze of Life stood out to me as a very cool one.
Blaze of Life is a good one. And speaking of theurgies, we actually got a few comments about the theurgy discussions we were having last week. I think was it last week when you were talking about the new theurgy that you had seen?
I believe so, yeah.
So Alex wrote in and said, and forgive me if I butcher the name, but the Decarabia and Fornius theurgy?
Yeah, that's the Decarabia is the star person, I believe.
is a reference to SMT3 Nocturne. Fornius is the first boss of that game, and Decarabia is waiting to hang out together at the Hachiko statue. The first time you go, Decarabia will mention that Fornius is running late, and then he stays there the rest of the game like the good boy he is. You've
killed him because he's the first boss?
You can come back later and tell him you killed Fornius, but he laughs in your face and says a weakling could never kill his friend before angrily going back to waiting. Elizabeth has a dialogue recounting this story with the laughing in your face part removed.
That is such an incredible deep cut.
I love it.
That's so cool that they did that.
Yeah.
And then also just, that's wild.
Yeah. Several other people also pointed this out. I will point to Sable's comment, but Shade mentioned this as well. Elizabeth's younger brother is Theodore. So the mention of Theodore, or the mention of her younger brother, is Theodore, the attendant for the female main character in P3 Portable.
Oh.
And Sable also said, fun fact, all the Velvet Room attendants are related to each other. Persona 5 related, but Lavenza is Elizabeth's younger sister.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool that that's actually... All right, well, it's not my wild theory about... Listen, I'm just doing anything I can to try to make Jose make sense. That's really what this is about.
Fair. That's our life's goal. Yeah.
But I do appreciate that there's actually an explanation there.
Don't worry. When we get to, like, Persona 9, they'll reveal Jose's true nature. It'll be fine. We'll be 80-year-old men. Welcome to Take Your Time, we'll be saying into your brains. Dan also commented, this was just us talking about the social links last week. Dan said, on the point that the main character could be replaced with a cardboard cutout in Tanaka's social link, a fun gameplay parallel is that it's one of the few social links that is guaranteed to level up each time, so it literally does not matter what you say.
That's funny.
It is a bit odd that of all the social links, they make a night social link level up guaranteed, given how little you have to do in the evenings, but that is the case. So, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's fun. We do have some other fun comments, but we can save some of those for later, as well as maybe the upcoming couple weeks, because we have a lot of story to get through this week.
Yeah, there's a lot of story this week, and then next week is the exams start, or not next week. Next week is a free week, and then exams start, and so we've got a lot of time to think and consider things that have happened this week.
Your academics better be maxed, all of you out there. If it's not, what are you doing? But anyway, we'll get there later. And we also will mention there will be a little bit of switcheroos when it comes to the timing for the next couple weeks. But
yeah.
Before we get there, let us dive into the week of December 1st through the 7th. Tom.
What?
Are you ready? That's all I was going to ask.
Oh, yes.
Cool. Well, because we get to start this really important week by talking about an absolutely free day where nothing happens.
Yeah, except that's only true for you.
It is.
Because you probably skipped the conversation with Ryoji.
Hell yeah, I did. I hung out with Chihiro and got her to rank 9. What did you do?
Oh, man. I hung out with Ryoji because he sent me an urgent text wanting to meet up after skipping school.
Yeah, tell me about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so this scene is, again, it's one of those scenes that I like. I think I've come around that I do like that they let you opt into these things, but also, man, do they feel essential to some degree. Yeah, so you meet up with him in the music room, which is the first place you went when you first hung out with him on his first day. And he says he needed to meet up with you because he got the sudden feeling like he was running out of time. And so he needed to see you. And he wanted to say thank you for everything. And you're like, why are you thanking me? This is confusing. And then he decides to play you a song. And in the month since you met him first, he went from being bad at the piano to being amazing at the piano. Whoa, what a twist. And then he says some stuff that's really interesting. He says he better understands what building a connection with someone means, and he wants to build a connection with you. And he says he doesn't want to just be friends. He wants to be more than friends. And your only real answers are, like, not understanding what he means, which makes slightly more sense because then he's also sort of like, I don't really understand what I mean too. Like, the more than friends line, I think colloquially we think of as
Romantic.
dating or romantic, but it sounds like he doesn't really mean it that way. He just feels this incredible connection to you and doesn't understand it or know how to express it. It's left a little ambiguous, but there's that line. And then Fuka shows up because she heard the song being played and wanted to see what was going on, and goes, "Hey, were you playing that music?" And you're like, "No, Ryoji." Oh, Ryoji is gone. Ooh. And then he's vanished. And that's basically the whole scene. It is, to some extent, reconfirming that he is magical in some way. But he also, it is sort of doubling down on, and this was the scene, and obviously we're going to talk about the Ryoji reveal that happens the next day or whatever, but like this was the scene that really cemented to me, like, oh, okay, he is not, you remember, like, at the very beginning of when he first showed up, I was like, I don't know yet if he's a sleeper agent who's pretending to be naive, or if he doesn't have his memories, or what's going on there, but it's clear who he is. I just don't know how he fits in. This scene really, really solidified to me. He is not a sleeper agent. He does not know what's happening to him, and he does genuinely care for you amidst confusing things happening to himself as well, which is now then a thread that we get to pull on more as the actual reveal happens.
Yeah, to not jump the gun too much, I think what you do see here that works really well is the fact that this character is not just like black or white, good or bad. Like they have this nature, but because they've had this time now as a human, they do care for you, and there is like an honest want to be part of this life. But they believe this other calling is what has to happen. So yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there in just a few minutes, I think.
Yeah, so that's what I did during the day, and then all my personas got a stat up, which is great.
And then what'd you do in the night?
The shopping arrived, because, you know, that's the important thing. And then I watched TV. I did, like, the zombie show thing with Yukari, and that was only my second time doing that with her. So there's still, there's still a couple of those lingering scenes for me.
Nice. Okay.
I don't think there's many. I think it's like that Yukari one and maybe one other or something like that.
What else are you going to do with your nights? I get it.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll get into that. I did some, this is an RPG. I did some role-playing this week, and we'll talk about that.
I'm looking forward to it. With that in mind, this is when I went to Tartarus this week, given it was the last night to do so. I did not get the shopping, but I finally have money going forward now, so that is nice.
Hooray!
Yeah. And I do... Yeah, that was it for that night. I thought something else happened, but it's later in my notes. So let us get into December 2nd.
The day where nothing happens at all.
Yeah, we just actually are going to skip this one. We'll talk about it maybe later.
I will say, I really do appreciate, because going into this, I made a lot of assumptions about what I thought was going to happen. But the game doesn't... I mean, it sets up the Aigis stuff of Aigis is going to do something, right? It starts teasing that. But it doesn't act like this is going to be a big day, right? They say we don't have an operation. We don't really know. It's a full moon, but that doesn't really matter. Like, it could very easily have just passed by, and I would have been like, oh, that's a surprising, interesting choice. And so I do like that this day does give you free time at the beginning and the end, because, yeah, your character isn't expecting anything is going on today. I only sort of, like, metagame assumed it was.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice twist to have that free time going into this day, because there is that expectation where it's just going to cut you to the big thing. But no. You do get a very ominous meeting with Aigis in the morning about like protecting us and hinting at what is about to come later that night. Then, as you said, you do get your free time during the day. What did you do? Because I have a bit of a revelation for you.
Ooh. Well, I like that you can talk to Junpei, and he's like, Aigis just ran out the door. I don't know where she went. She's just gone, which is also setting up that something is happening today, but you just don't know what yet necessarily. So during the day, I got Mitsuru to rank 3. So I hung out with Mitsuru again.
Nice.
Yeah. That I think is, yeah.
Do you want to just give me your quick evening as well? Because then I can wrap up mine and we can go into the night.
Sure. The evening I just gardened with Junpei because I just didn't have much else to do, and there were golden tomatoes to garden.
Perfect. I also planted with Junpei in the evening and also hung out with Mitsuru during the day. I got her to rank 2, so just a
Nice.
little behind you. To your point about that thing of Aigis running out during the day, you also get home and Fuka asks about Aigis saying she's been coming home late. So you're...
Yeah, and isn't back yet.
Exactly, yeah. But what I did want to mention from my day was, Tom, I did buy an Odin juice. The game just didn't give me the option to do anything with it last week.
What do you mean?
Like the little pop-ups didn't happen like they normally do on my map.
Oh.
To give to, like, I was able to do the thing and go to the girl in the garden, and I was able to complete that request, and I'm good to go.
Oh.
But I didn't see it last week.
Huh.
Yeah.
Weird.
I don't know what happened, but I am on track.
Okay, good.
Continuing to go forward. So I'm happy about that. I did also invite Elizabeth to my room.
Oh.
But as I am currently engaged, I said no thank you.
I'm very proud of you.
And you know what? She was like, I'm all right about that. That's fine. I understand.
Yeah, it's respectful.
Yeah, she didn't push it. It was cordial.
If you go back to Elizabeth after, if you do say yes, if you go back to Elizabeth in
She's
front of the
smoking a
room
cigarette
door,
and she's like, hey, how are you doing?
No, but you can, if you choose the talk thing, she'll be like, so about the other night, thank you for that. And then just like her little avatar blushes. She's like, I think about it a lot. And it's kind of weird. It's like a little bit weird.
Oh boy. Well, we'll talk about how that maybe wraps into the full moon or not, because it, spoilers, doesn't. So let's get into this full moon. Because we do have a lot to talk about.
Go to the dark hour.
Yes. Yeah, we end up in the dark hour, as you might expect. You're kind of wondering, obviously, if this is your first time playing, you don't know what to expect because we've defeated the shadows. Presumably things are done. Obviously, there are these weird threads hanging. We've had some dramatic things in the past month. And as we cut to the dark hour, it's the full moon. Aigis shows up on the bridge along with Ryoji.
Which is about what I was expecting the start of this would be, if that makes sense. I there's a lot of things we can get into that I did not expect, but definitely Aigis confronting Ryoji right away was pretty much on my bingo card.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, they are definitely setting up the fact that she is feeling such a he is dangerous, especially with the conversations last week that we experienced. It was like she had to come to a head with this. I totally get it. So they begin talking. It's sort of this revelation discussion where Ryoji has this strange feeling of peace despite knowing that something bad is happening. And they're having this discussion back and forth about she's wondering if he has forgotten what has happened. She points out the fact that he's adapted to the dark hour too well for a human to have adapted so quickly like this. And she understands why she has felt this idea that he is dangerous. He is the enemy.
Yeah.
And we get a wonderful flashback to a night like this a long time ago.
And she also, before this cutscene, confirms that his true name is Death, which is, we assumed, or was my assumption, but she does confirm this right leading into this cutscene.
Oh, I had that written down later, but you're correct. Anyway, my notes are out of order then. I apologize. We get that flashback to this cutscene where they met each other.
Super cool cutscene.
It's very cool. Yeah, we're essentially getting this like cutting back to the past while seeing it in the future as well. It's like moments that mirror, kind of echo each other, of Aigis fighting with Ryoji's true nature coming forward. We're getting the sense of Aigis doing these really cool jumping attacks. She's leaping all around, really trying to hit him with everything she has. And they're talking about this evening that occurred 10 years ago. He doesn't know her. There seems to be some confusion there at this point. She sealed him away, though, 10 years ago. And what we learn is, as she's going all out, he was born on this very bridge. He is death. And when he came into being, though, a part of his being was broken into the shadows, the 12 shadows, and scattered. They do this cool slow motion fight. He begins transforming kind of into a more like death looking persona. And what we learn is that she couldn't quite defeat him in that moment. So what she did was she sealed him away, but there was only one suitable vessel nearby, and that was a little boy on the bridge who we see kind of crawling out of what looks like an accident on the bridge. We see him crawling away and learn that essentially this boy is us, and Ryoji as death, as that shadow, was sealed away inside us back in the day.
10 years ago, when
10
everything
faithful
bad
years.
happened.
Yep. What a night. He was sealed away in us. He led us, he says, like unwittingly to discover the rest of his remaining pieces so that he could come back fully and reformed. And all of these memories come flooding back to him. Aegis calls on her persona to attack him, but he's like, I'm even stronger now. You can't destroy me. He's fully assumed his power at this point, and he sends out this massive blast that like fries her. You can see her trying to attack him, and he essentially is able to have like a pure wall of energy that just stops her attacks from hitting him.
Yeah.
And she's hammering away at him, and he sends out this blast that essentially like fries her. You see like smoke coming out of her. She's kind of like staticky and falling apart a little bit, and she's really freaked out at this moment. She says like if she can't do this, she has no reason to exist, and that she's sorry and scared.
Right.
I'm gonna pause there. Any reactions from you from this moment, or do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of this I assumed with the death stuff and the him being that reincarnation, her having already fought him is a really cool reveal. The thing with him being sealed in you on the bridge is not a thing I saw coming in any way, shape, or form. It also adds a cool little twist to why Pharos was depicted as a 10-year-old boy or like a little kid, because he's been living in you for 10 years. So if he was born that day inside of you being sealed away, he was literally aging along the way, which is a cute little sort of visual thing. Yeah, it's a really cool scene. It's a really bombastic sort of thing. And I want to get into it further because I want to get deeper in, because the thing that I really didn't see coming is sort of how Ryoji reacts to all of this and proceeds from here.
Cool. One thing I do want to mention there, just in terms of like the fun ties the game does, and I think this is something I like had to stop myself from saying a couple weeks ago. The voice actor for the main character, for your protagonist, is the same voice actor as Pharos.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So to further tie the idea that it's the same person kind of like assimilated together, it's just a fun, neat twist. Anyway, so after all that happens, this really cool, as you pointed out, like awesome cutscene of the battle, it cuts to the girls in the control room. Fuka is searching with Juno, Mitsuru's with her, Yukari comes in, they're looking for Aegis and, obviously worried about her and all this stuff, and they eventually find her and that she's on the bridge. There's a little bit of back and forth of like not being able to find her, sense of persona, not sure if it's Strega, etc., but basically it sends the group to the bridge. And we all find them approaching Aegis, who is essentially breaking down right now. She is mechanically and emotionally breaking at this point in this battle. And she's remembering everything. She knows why she wanted to be by us, but has failed. Like, she's understanding why she had this really deep-seated need to stick by our side, which I really like.
A lot of teased little mysteries all coming out and coming together here.
Yeah. Ryoji shows up in human form. Aegis stops moving and functioning at this point. And he starts to explain how, like, all of this is his fault. Like, I would say, and you correct me if you feel differently, I do feel like there is a true sense of contrition, sadness here. Like, there is a genuine...
Yeah, this is where this scene and this encounter starts going a way I really didn't expect it to go. Because my prediction last week was Aegis goes after Ryoji, he awakens to whatever he is, you confront him, and then that sets up fighting him or death as the big bad in the next full moon or going forward. Yeah. And largely that's what happens, But the big difference, and the thing I did not see coming at all, is I thought when Ryoji awoke to who he was, we would fight.
Which is fair, but no, instead it's a quite reasonable conversation we have.
Really interesting direction to take his character of being like, because he was trapped in a human, he has human emotions, and he did build these connections with people and feels horrible about his role in what is about to happen, and therefore has a real conversation with you about it. And that's really cool. It reminds me sort of what happened with Strega and Takaya, of like, I thought you were just going to fight these dudes, but then Takaya really tries to talk to you a bunch, right? This game has a lot of relatable, or not relatable, but like villains that chat with you and aren't chatting with you in maniacal speech ways, except for, Ikutsuki, but chatting with you in genuinely wanting to discuss why you are doing what you're doing and why they're doing what they're doing, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, I think it is a fantastic way to make villains work in, sadly, a way that I don't think we see as much anymore. I feel like it is a little bit of a rarity to have that, and obviously, it allows you to understand their perspectives better and creates this emotional attachment in ways that really work. And obviously that's true for these characters. Like, we know for a fact he's been going to the dorm or hanging out with Junpei almost every night. Like, they have been buddies. It has not been a small thing. Obviously, he made a fool of himself in front of the girls, but other than that, he's become a good pal. Yeah.
Yeah. Does he get his horniness from you?
Oh, good question.
Because you also date everything that moves, basically.
Sure,
every girl that will talk to you, you then can go on dates with all at the same time.
I mean, you did sleep with Elizabeth, so, like, it kind of tracks. Yeah.
I think that's a trait he picked up from you.
I mean, you are a high school boy, so it only makes sense. Moving on from there, though, to some of his revelations, to your point of this being a conversation, he calls himself the appriser, born of the union of the 12 arcana, and that it's sort of his goal to draw the maternal being for her to itself, for her to be awakened.
Right.
That being...
That's what shadows were in general, is just drawing
exactly.
that being.
She's on a level of her own. I do want to say he, at this point, also kind of talks about how, like, there's nothing in your language to describe her. And then the next day is like, her name is Nyx. And I love how incongruous that is, but it's fine. I get it adds like a weight to say that. It's like, your human speech has no word to describe her omnipotence, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he keeps talking about the fact that, like, 10 years ago, of course, as we know, a man collected shadows in a lab. Ryoji was born, but that unification was interrupted because Aigis took him down, but obviously not completely. So this is when he was sealed away in us. And he's lived in...
The unification also was interrupted because of Yukari's dad blowing everything up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the obviously we're going to talk more about how it's the end of the world and there's nothing they can do, which is what the next day conversation. But this also, this point that he was interrupted basically is saying, like, the world was supposed to end 10 years ago and got delayed, right? And it was only because Ikutsuki made you go after these 12 shadows and all of that stuff started happening that the world picked back up.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so he talks about all of that, how he's lived inside us, and when we awaken to our powers and all of this, so did the shadows wanting to connect again. And so, as I mentioned, he seems truly sad that this has to be their fate. Like, he cares about them enough.
This is not a villain monologue.
Yes. Yeah.
This is not him declaring his victory. It's him very somberly explaining the situation to people he considers his friends.
Exactly. And then he collapses in sort of tiredness, which is a very human thing to happen here, pointing to that duality. And we take him and Aigis back to the dorm, and lest it be up for mystery at all, the kind of interstitial dialogue that your character has of you thinking makes the comparison directly of Pharos and Ryoji. They are one and the same sort of thing. But yeah.
This is a trend of this week, because this is not just this moment and after this conversation the conversation that happens the next night, and then also all the little conversations that you can have with people around the house in the next couple days really are just reiterating exposition as many times as they can, or as many times as you're willing to listen. It is you were talking about how it's like, oh, the game's actually kicking off now, right? Or like the story stuff is really happening. This feels like they gave you such a large lore dump, and they explain so many things that are happening and have been teased all game, that they just really want to make sure you're paying attention and really want to make sure you're not missing any of this stuff. Yeah. So there will be moments too where the protagonist will just be like, oh, and have little thought bubbles that just recap everything you just heard.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is, to your
It's not a complaint, to be clear. It's just like, it's very obvious that they're doing that in a way that they haven't been.
Yes. This is, not to undersell it, this is such a culminating point in the story of so many threads to what you're saying. You're understanding more about like Yukari's father, about Aegis, about you, about Pharos, about this new character, about the 12 Shadows in general. You are getting so much thrown at you. And yeah, to your point, you can go around to everyone. And it's like, what are the 3 conversations Fuka has about all of this? What does Yukari have? And you can kind of get a little info dump if you still need it.
Yeah, and all of those things, the vast majority of those little chats that you have with them are all things you already know. It's just them sort of re-explaining it in a very clear and concise way. None of those conversations are belabored. None of them are super crazy long. They're all good. Yes. Like I like that they have that resource there. It's just very interesting that the game is very clearly like, we want you to get this stuff in your head, please. Because if you don't understand the things we're explaining right now, you are not going to get the rest of it.
Yeah, none of this will have the impact it needs to, because we really need you to understand what's happening both in this scene and the next day. So as we get to December 3rd, we get a lot more.
Yeah, we go
story.
To school.
Yeah.
We just go to school. It's a school day.
It's a school day, and as often happens in this game, it's like, the most important, crazy events of my life have happened. Now I must go to school.
Yep.
And basically at class, Mitsuru was like, hey, he's awake. There's no time jump here. He was in a coma for a week. He's awake. Yeah. Let's go chat tonight. So
I was kind of expecting a coma time jump, or that's fair. A couple of days of free days of he hasn't woken up yet.
He's a fully powered up supreme being of death. What do you expect? He's kicking. He's doing well. So to that point, we all gather in the control room at the dorm. It's all of S.E.E.S plus Ryoji. He mentioned
exposition.
It is. So we have a bit more info to get through, but he is like, I have more to tell you. And Mitsuru is like, well, I have questions, you son of a bitch. So hold on.
Yeah.
And they start going into things. We want to know, like, what happens if this being, who we learn is named Nyx, returns. He calls her the Mother of Shadows, who bestowed death on the world. And that if she returns, essentially all life will perish. But not like we all die immediately. It's that we would surrender.
Yeah, it's even grimmer than that.
It is. It is what we have heard called the fall. It's that we will all surrender the will to live like the lost have. That we've been seeing. So.
And so you just all will stand around not wanting to do anything, and then all die because you don't eat.
Yep, and there will be no more human life to go on because no one cares anymore to do anything. Ryoji, as he's describing this, is also very vehement. This can't be stopped. This is going to happen. No one is powerful enough to stop this. He is the appriser of death, and the fact that he is here means that the fall is coming. He sees that as like empirical proof that is what has to happen now. So
yeah, you kind of get more insight on why Akutsuki took a victory lap.
Yeah.
Right? And why he just was like fine with killing himself at the end there, because he knew as long as they got rid of those shadows, it was done. Yep. It was too late. It was over. And that's what Ryoji really drives home here is there's no out of this. Everyone has lost.
Yeah.
The
It's a real bummer.
end.
It's a real bummer conversation.
It's super grim. It is very much like a big part of this conversation is not what can we do about this. It's just the team coming to terms, right? It is really a somber scene.
Yeah. He, to put a fine point on it, is like, I don't think you guys are going to last very long. Like, this is going to end pretty shortly.
Yeah, he specifically says he thinks you won't be alive to see next spring, right?
What a wild thing to say to a room of kids.
Yeah. Seriously, which is means next couple months is all you got, pretty much. Because he says it can't be defeated. I specifically like this line too. I don't know if you wrote it down too, but he says Nyx can't be defeated. It's like trying to fight the flow of time. Like, Nyx is not a boss to beat. It is an elemental force of the universe.
But Ryoji, see, here's the problem. You're in a video game, so we'll see about that.
Yeah, seriously.
Is kind of the
take
tone.
All this seriously, yeah.
Yeah, is kind of the tone, but Ryoji is very adamant that, like, there is nothing to do to defeat her, and everyone is obviously extremely distraught over all of this, and he, to your point, this is a very somber, this is a very sad, awful situation to be in. He wants to kind of give them a silver lining somewhat. Because he,
if you want to call it that,
he thinks it is. Like, I think what he sees is like, this is the last positive I can give these people, because otherwise everything else I'm doing more weighs on the negative side.
Yeah, he is very. It's like, because he showed up, it's gonna happen, and he doesn't have any control of that. And now, because of what he knows about the world, if he had a choice, he wouldn't make it happen. But he just can't.
Yeah, which I like the tone of all of this, because, to your point, it's not like a villain who's like, oh, but my gracious power, I will give you a few free extra minutes of life. It's like, no, he's like, I'm your friend. I want you to have this.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I can give you this choice. I have this human form now. It's the gift he believes he's received from residing within inside of us for all these years. So he's like, I want to give you an option. This is going to happen, but I can let you live in peace until Nyx arrives. You'll forget about the dark hour. You'll forget about all this stuff has happened, but you will be able to have normal lives that aren't burdened down by this knowledge. All you have to do is kill me.
Yup.
Specifically us, because since we're tied to him in this cosmic way, he believes we are maybe the only ones who could do that.
Right.
Or,
and he also says, he can't even, he says that he is indestructible in the same way Nyx is anyway, right? And so, because of your connection, that's the only thing that could do it. But the idea that he's like, you just got to kill me, but only you can do it, because I am also an immortal, unknowable, ethereal being.
Yeah, with a cool scarf.
Yeah.
And so he's like, all of this knowledge will go away from you. The fall would happen to you in an instant. You would not go through these next few months suffering and feeling the despair kind of take fully form over you. You would forget everything, but you would not suffer.
Yeah, so it's a really horrible choice of either live in petrified fear of guaranteed death.
Yeah.
Or just be ignorant about it and die at some point.
Yep. That's the
and that
choice
would also,
he
says that would also delay it slightly, right? So
yes, yeah.
That's something. But it's a really interesting thing, because I mean, I know this is the whole point. This is the game, death. But the whole point of it is that death is inevitable, right? In a larger sense, that is just true of all life.
Yeah.
Outside of a video game. And so this question of death is inevitable, what are you going to do about it, is so core to all of the sidelines and the other conversations you've had, the conversations with Yukari, the conversations with all your social links. It is so fun. I love that this question, this inevitability of presenting it, because I do think that this, obviously, I think that they're going to figure out a way to do something about this and save the day. I don't think that the game is just going to end with everyone dying. But also, presenting it as so definite allows it to tie into all the conversations you had with Kamiki and all the conversations you had with all these other characters about living or death, the conversations with the bookstore people about their son who died, right? Like, all of these things tie into now this very real physical manifestation of that feeling, except it's happening very soon.
Yeah. No, I think it obviously takes a long time for it to all come together in this way as it has, but I think it's really like all respect to the original development team, and then obviously the team that took over the remake and continued to add on top of it, of I think how well everything reflects back on that central theme within this game.
Yeah.
And
it really also reflects back on Strega saying, I don't want to forget, I don't want this to go away. It reflects back on Yukari and the beach trip being like, now that we know about these things happening, how could we turn away? How could we have lost the right to just ignore that this stuff is happening?
Yeah.
It ties back into so many things in a very, very well executed way.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic, and we'll have more to discuss as we go, but yeah.
And in a way that is not as elegant, or is more elegant than if they were just like, she can't be defeated, but we figured out how we might be able to. Like, if they had that right away, I am assuming something like that is going to happen at some point. But because they give you some time to just stew in that dread, it is really effective.
Yes, yeah, especially because we're told, again and again, Ryoji is like, this is going to happen. You have no choice other than this small choice for maybe a brief respite of happiness. I will give you until New Year's Eve.
Right.
Then you have to decide and make the call.
Because then he'll lose his physical form after that.
Exactly. And then he just walks out and vanishes, as he did from your hangout earlier the day before.
New Year's Eve, conveniently, a full moon.
Who would have thought? 2 full moons in 1 month? That seems like a setup to me.
That only happens once in a blue moon. Get it?
The game is blue. The background is blue. There you go. Anyway. We get all of that. You're put into this, choice of how do you choose how you want to die?
Right.
Is kind of what the characters are discussing. And after all of that, after all of this emotional distress, Tom, how did you spend your free evening?
I will tell you how I spent my free evening. The only way that canonically makes sense in any way, shape, or form for right now, I went to fucking bed.
Good. I like that. I did that my first playthrough too. Yeah.
I'm sorry for swearing, but this is like a PG-13 movie. We get one.
We do. And it was a good one.
There is no universe where after that conversation, I was like, I guess I'll go on the internet and think about Mitsuru. Like, there was no galaxy where I wanted to do anything in that game but go to bed immediately.
That's very fair. I get that. I studied the veggie blog so I could grow my plants better. Because they're gonna sprout soon, and I might need them. You never know.
I mourn anybody who still had Tanaka at this point and had that conversation and then was like, went and learned about scams or something.
I did have that thought of well, I heard about all this. I guess I'll go get drunk with a monk right now.
that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
That one also gets a pass if you go hang out with Mutatsu.
Yeah. Well, I do want to ask some of your summation thoughts of everything we've gone through, but let's get through the rest of the days because it's relatively normal.
Yeah. And also, I think ties into what I think about all of this.
Yeah. Anyway, we get to December 4th, the next day, after all of these big revelations to us, and I think it is fair to say that the world is starting to get affected a little bit by this countdown we're now put on.
Yeah.
Because
if you walk around the town, there's just so many people.
Yes.
So many apathy syndrome people. Like dozens and dozens on each screen.
it is fully taken over. That is the majority of NPCs that you see around you. In this morning, you actually also are hearing kids talk about the idea that they've heard there's some new religion saying that apathy syndrome is actually helpful. Propaganda.
Right. There's
folks.
just people embracing it.
Yeah, you get that happen. Just as importantly, you get new requests from Elizabeth. So if you want to spend your final days doing that, you can.
This is why this game. So let me
Go for it.
do both parts of this. I stand by what I said. I love that it just lets you stew in the dread. I also don't like how normal these days are. Because you immediately get new requests, and after this horrible thing, you have like a quirky scene where you meet Santa Claus and then dress Elizabeth up in a beard.
That's
like
life, Tom.
immediately.
That's life. That's what you
I
take
don't
the
know.
good with the bad.
It's
There
very
you
funny
have.
to me how casual this is. And this is also, I will say, similarly, my day today was just getting Mitsuru to rank 4. And like, it was weird to me that she was just totally normal. Like, if you talk to Junpei is like, man, we should just go home. This sucks. This is awful. I don't know how we're supposed to focus on class. This is the worst. And then you go hang out with Mitsuru, and she's like, oh yeah, everything's great. You want to hang out? Let's hang out. And like, nothing has happened. And there is a disconnect there that I do not like.
Sure. I think it would make a lot of sense if the S.E.E.S members who are social links were not available today. I know that would take
think it would make a
away from
lot
the
of
player,
sense.
but I think that would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, instead Mitsuru is available like every single day this week.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's who you hung out with during the day. I hung out with Miyamoto and got him to rank 9.
Woo.
What a blast. You do get home. Junpei is distraught about things.
Yeah.
Talks a little bit about all that, you know?
Correct,
Yeah.
Junpei.
Hey, he's gone through it. This guy has really had his ups and downs, and mostly downs in the recent weeks. So
Yes. This is also the night where there's like tons of recap conversations that you can have, which are all again very I think it's cool that they did that they really put an emphasis on like, hey, let's explain what's going on here.
yeah, take a breather.
But also making it opt-in.
Totally. Yeah. Yukari, Fuka, Mitsuru, and Akihiko all have those options, which is nice to
The only people that don't is Junpei and Ken, who are just like, oh man.
This is a bummer.
That tracks them being the ones that would not really know what's going on fully.
Yeah. What did you do with your evening then?
Again, just sort of role-playing what I thought was correct. I brushed Koromaru.
It's a good call. Yeah.
Some just puppy therapy.
I had a feeling I might need this for later, so I thought about Mitsuru on the computer, just in case that one stopgaps me at some point. So,
Yeah.
there we are. December 5th.
Mm-hmm.
You have kids talking about Ryoji disappearing from school. There's this rumor about his parents needing to transfer. Obviously, there's some convenient mind-wiping Jedi mind trick stuff going on here to get him out of the picture cleanly for everyone.
Sure.
Must be nice. And then you just get a normal day and night.
Yep.
What did you do for both?
I got Mitsuru to rank 5.
Nice.
I don't want to spoil her social link, but I will say it is getting ridiculous in some ways, because I will not, again, I'm not going to spoil specifics or like specific like relationship stuff, but basically the recurring joke of a lot of these conversations with her are like, oh, Mitsuru is rich, she doesn't go out and do normal people things. What are these things? I've never been in a wild duck burger. That's very interesting. You know, it's like that's sort of the shtick.
Yeah.
But this scene specifically getting to rank 5 is her going to a movie theater and being like, I've never gone to what you can just buy a ticket and walk in and get to see the movie. Oh my. And it's like, Mitsuru, we went to a film festival together. We actively did this already together. So this one struck me as a little bit too far-fetched in that part of the conceit
Sure.
of that she would like have never known what a movie theater is.
Yeah.
But also the scenes, the bits of conversation you get about her and character stuff is actually really good within these sort of silly setups.
No, totally. I've seen the whole thing, so I know what you mean. Yeah, it's a little incongruous with the actual story that has taken place, but the content within it is good and entertaining. Yeah.
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 It's also just a generally, again, not spoiling anything, a really interesting direction to have her character go. And I like seeing more of it in a way that, like, I've said Fuka was disappointing to me in the direction that they went with that character. This direction is more interesting to me for sure.
For sure. I get that. And then what'd you do in the evening?
In the evening, I did the dating site for Mitsuru because I finally snapped out of it.
That's fair. Tracks. That's a good way to go. Yeah. I got Chihiro to max rank, so rank 10 there.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And then I went to the arcade to play a game to increase my Persona's magic because I was like, I got nothing to do.
Just had this like axe hanging over your head this whole week and then doing these silly little things.
It's very funny. Yeah. Moving to December 6th, we get the Home Shopping Network in the morning, so Tanaka's still up to his crazy schemes. He doesn't know the world's ending. He needs his money.
Selling fruit bundles.
As you do. I could afford it this time, so I bought it.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Then let's go to your day.
I hung out with Sumitsu. Got him to rank 5.
Nice. You're getting there.
Yeah.
I will say, if you continue this one, I think it works really well at this point in the game.
Okay.
I hung out with Hayase and got him to rank 7.
Okay. I have not hung out with him since the first time.
I get that. Yeah. I totally skipped him on my first one. He's very, very tertiary to your experience in this game.
It feels like what's the right way to put it? Like when you were younger and your friends were your parents were friends with other parents, so they just wanted you to be friends with some kid that you're not, they're fine. They're not bad, but you're not really friends with them. But your parents are friends, so they hang out a lot, so they want you to hang out. Like, that's how Hayase feels to me, is they're just like, hey, you guys both run? Why don't you hang out on a Sunday? And I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, I've got shopping to do, I guess.
Yeah.
I will say I like his story. I think it's a decent story, but it is,
That's good.
You very much feel like I forget he's there.
Yeah.
If I wasn't going for the
Sumitsu's story is
maximum.
unhinged. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Speaking of him, I did just think about him in the evening because I couldn't do a new rank with him.
Sumitsu?
Yeah.
I did too!
Hell yeah. The Gourmet King is all we can think about as the world comes to an end.
Canonically, what or RPG role-playing wise, what I decided here was that my character was so messed up by all of this going on and having to spend time with Sumitsu that he got confused and he sat down at the site to think about Mitsuru, and then just sort of like his brain drifted off to Suimitsu, and that happened.
That's the effect that guy has on you. What can you say? He has
Yeah.
a mesmerizing presence. Well, other than that, I do just want to mention there is a sweet as you get home conversation from Akihiko where he kind of is thinking about, especially with death hanging over him, the idea of meeting up with Shinji again sometime in the future and what that might be like. A cute little scene of he's like, I think Shinji would just punch me and then keep going. It's cute. It's nice Oh, go ahead.
Well, this is the other thing, right? Is so much of this game has involved loss or fighting against loss or resisting dealing with death of other people, and how do you go on? And now all of these people who've had to get over the death of Shinji, get over the death of parents, all reckon with these losses. They're all now just like, oh, it doesn't matter. You're all going to die like soon.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a very powerful thing of multiple people on this team are dealing with grief right now. And then they've been told essentially that they're terminally ill. And that's a messed up mix of emotions.
Yeah. No, I mean, in the last couple months, Akihiko lost his brother, Mitsuru lost her dad, Junpei lost the love of his life. It's been rough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, it's been sad. I just was thinking, I'm like, wow, this has been a real sad stretch. Anyway, let's go to our
This game is a downer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm enjoying it, to be clear.
Yeah.
But it is grim.
No,
this is a grim game.
This is not like let me feel good at the end of my day.
Yeah.
Other than the soundtrack, which is great. But
yes.
December 7th, our final day of the week, we get a little conversation in the morning about Yukari being weighed down by things. I do like, this and Akihiko and all that. You are getting, obviously, it is your choice at the end of the day and whether you choose to kill Ryoji because you are the only one who can. But it is considered kind of like a group discussion of what are we doing? How do we proceed
that's the theme of this week, and I'm assuming going forward is we have 3 or 4 weeks to decide what we're doing here. And you can even get this in conversations with people of like, some people are like, why would I don't want to forget, right? And then others, like, you talk to Ken and he's like, how could we even do this? Like, how could we live like this?
Yeah.
Right? So there's already sort of there's not just some consensus. You're not all just like, we're going to save the world. Nobody is even thinking at this point about like, but what if we do this crazy plan? There's not even a discussion of, well, why don't we just try to fight anyway? There's none of that right now. And I do think some of that will show up eventually, but right now it is really, they're just letting you sit with, this is how it is.
It's over. Yeah. That's just how they're feeling. We're all going to take our evokers. We're going to make a big evoker and we're going to shoot the moon with it. Our final day after that, we learned that exams will start on Monday. That will affect our upcoming schedule for the show. We'll talk about that after we finish. You get a ozone layer question in class.
Yeah.
Which, one, I wrote who gives a crap because I have my academics weighted. I'm good to go. I don't need this, and my charm and all that. I'm fine. But, man, we used to really think about the ozone layer a lot.
Yeah, we did. This was actually a thing I was thinking about, is that the ozone layer was a really big deal when we were younger, of the hole in the ozone layer in the kind of the 90s and early 2000s, and that makes sense why they would mention it in this game. And if anybody's curious, you can look it up. You can do the research on this. The ozone layer's pretty good now.
Yeah.
We did a bunch of regulations to stop the things that were destroying the ozone layer, and it was able to recover. And it was like it's a very interesting example of humanity recognizing we were destroying the planet in a very specific way and implementing changes to stop doing that, and then it working out.
Yeah. It's a wild thing where it's like you think about everything that is going on and all the causes and all these things, but the ozone layer problem was so pushed and was such a big deal. And it did. It just got fixed.
And it was also in the context of the game at that point, an existential threat that was just looming over the world and one day going to destroy it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was a parallel to the to Nyx or whatever in a very interesting way to bring up at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, after the ozone layer question, we get to our day and evening. So just give me everything to wrap up the week.
Mitsuru.
Same.
Yeah. I got Mitsuru to 6.
Nice.
So they're really just letting you hang out with Mitsuru a ton, which again feels very incongruous to Mitsuru feeling horrible existential dread right now.
That's fair. I would say she is, the one of the latest, if not the latest, social links that you've gotten. So I think they just want to make sure you have time to hang out with her.
If they didn't let you do this, you'd be like, when is this? How much time do I even have left?
Exactly. So yeah, I hung out with her during the day, got her to rank 3. Did you also then think about her at night? Is that what you meant by that, or?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Cool. I went to the arcade, but yeah.
There's a funny moment, like especially. Yeah, it was rank 4. It was literally when I did rank 4 with Mitsuru on the 4th. on the day right after this conversation. And there's literally the conversation, again, this is very minor spoilers, but I'm not going to bring up much of that, the actual, like, relationship part of it. She literally says, there's not much time left for us to spend like this. And then you respond, did something happen? And then she goes, no, I'm probably just tired. And it's this conversation that's, like, very, like, it could have been tied into the fact that you know the world is ending. Yeah. And instead it was just very coincidentally right after that moment with dialogue that almost made sense for it. It's just sort of funny that way.
Yeah. It's a tricky balancing act they have to get to when the stakes get so high, but also want to give you the ability to do these little interstitial conversations. I get it. It's not easy.
I do too.
Yeah.
It's not there. Yeah. There's no good answer to it, but it does feel odd.
Yes, for sure. And that wraps up our week. Moving forward for next week, we're going to be doing December 8th through the 13th, which is one less day because, as weird as it is, the world is ending. We're really, doing quite a lot of big stuff here. It's time for exams.
Why would you even care?
At this
point, why would your character care at all?
That's a good question. We'll find out if they do.
Even Akihiko is like, I just got to train. I just got to focus on training to keep my mind off of this. And then the next night you talk to him and he's like, why would I train if there's nothing to train for?
Yeah.
Like, even Akihiko has that moment.
No, it's very funny. It's a strange thing that we unfortunately have to contend with, but hey, it will give us, I think, a good time for check-ins, for questions and comments, especially now that we've gone through all of these major moments. So yeah, looking forward to discussing those. So we'll have a week that includes one extra day, but it'll be a shorter week in time because you'll be answering questions for half of it. So yeah.
Yes.
With that, since we've been going for a fair bit and went through a lot, I guess, Tom, just any final wrap-up question or thoughts as we come out of this, and then I want to hear your pop quiz.
Yeah, so my general prediction is, again, what I said last week made mostly sense. I said something along the lines of, I guess is going to go after Ryoji. He's going to turn into the Avatar of Death. It's going to set up that we're not going to, like, have the final confrontation this time, but it's going to set up the final confrontation next time. That is not quite what happened, but I do think that it's basically what's going to happen still based on what he said about spring. I think that there's going to be a month of thinking about death a lot, and then we're going to decide, no, we shall do something to fight, or we're going to try to figure out how to do it, or something. And then on the 31st, you're going to have a conversation with Ryoji about how to beat Nyx, and then the following full moon, you're going to actually try to do it. That's my, like, sort of structural theory for all of this. And you're going to win, but I don't know how or have any sense of what that entails yet. I think I'm really off the map at this point in terms of, like, trying to guess how this is going to go down. I mean, but I like the existential dread again. I do think that this setup is very interesting to me because it is very similar to what I thought was going to happen and different in some really, really cool ways that were unexpected.
Well, we've got a few weeks, as you mentioned, to see where that dread and uncertainty takes us and then where the rest of the game goes after that point.
Yeah.
As I said, we've reached the first third of the game and we're done. So what a ride. No, I'm excited to see where we go from here. And also just obviously a climactic event is happening on a very holiday-focused time of year and specifically day. So we will keep you all updated as we did with our Persona 5 playthrough. We are likely going to record some of those episodes a little bit early. So we may, deal with questions and comments that y'all have from that after the fact a little bit later because we'll be recording earlier before the holidays to make sure we can have time to unplug and spend time with family and all that sort of stuff. So we'll keep you all updated, but just want to kind of put that out there as we get there. Yeah. Tom, give me your pop quiz.
Pop quiz. December 3rd, you were talking with the appraiser of death himself. There's this very funny thing moment. I love a quiz that is Junpei is a dummy. How is Junpei a dummy? So that's my quiz this week. Junpei, Ryoji says he thinks you'll all be dead by spring. There's no way to stop this. It's absolutely happening. Death is coming. All of you are going to die. It's bleak as hell. And Junpei stands up and says, nah, gang, you're being silly. And he says, all we got to do is blank, and then we're golden. We'll be fine. And so what is Junpei's suggestion of the thing they have to do, and then they'll be fine? That's my question. And you can leave a comment at youtube.com/Dornology, dornology@gmail.com. I'm at Tom R. Marks on stuff. He's at JM Dornbush. You can send us an email or a tweet or anything like that, and we want to hear from you.
Yes, you can. And you can also send your love and thoughtfulness into the world, because we've been through a lot of rough events in this game. So we hope you're doing better than everyone is doing in the game at this point in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is going to pretty much do it for us this week. Tom, thank you, as always, so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
And as if I can leave everyone with some parting words, is if you want to further feel depressed with the gravity of the end of the world and how you live on in the face of grief, go watch The Leftovers, because it will just continue to make you feel sad, but I love it so much. Anyway.
Can I make a suggestion about if you're going to go watch The Leftovers? As somebody who did go watch The Leftovers, I think during the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh my God.
I'd never seen any of it. I didn't really even know what it was about.
Oh my God.
My recommendation, if you're going to watch that show in 2024, 2025, and don't know anything about it, is don't go in. You don't have to know anything about it going in. Don't binge it.
Yes, that's
good. My recommendation, because I watched it all 3 seasons in a short amount of time. My recommendation is to watch it weekly.
Yes.
Because the episodes are the first season you can binge, but second and third seasons I think you should take slower than you normally consume media than most people do in this day and age.
Yes.
Because the episodes are weird and they are slightly disjointed from each other in some cases. And if you go into it trying to watch it like a Netflix show, it is unpleasant.
Yep.
It is odd and off-putting.
I watched
and if
it
you
in real
watch
time.
it, yeah, if you watch it slow, where each thing is sort of like a weird event that you're taking on its own rather than just the next piece of the last episode, then it is fascinating, bonkers TV.
Yeah, kind of like how TV should be. But yes, that is a good recommendation, because as someone who watched it in real time, I think after every episode, I would just do like the deepest sigh and be like, oh my God, and need that week to decompress and think about it. So anyway, it's legitimately is my favorite show of all time, but it can be a rough watch. So good advice.
It's a wild one.
It is.
For sure.
With that, thank you all so much for listening or watching. Again, you can find us online, patreon.com/takeyourtime. Wherever you find us, we appreciate your love and support for the show. And I think that's it. We're really getting into some stuff, man. It's been a wild week, and we hope you have a good one, and I hope you seize the day. If you can. I understand if you can't. It's been a dramatic one.
Or just go to bed.
Yeah.